Thank you for having me speak this morning. It's good to be with you, even if we're separated by distance and by these little boxes we're in. I want to first say that I was so moved by that art piece from Ukraine at the beginning. That's where all our hearts are this morning, I know. Anyway. I wanted to tell you that the first time I was in your sanctuary was for the ordination of Jo Siders. Many of you might remember her. I was very new to the denomination at the time, and it was very, very long before I even ever thought of going into ministry, but I remember that celebration very well. Listen. Your Lenten theme, listen, is brilliant. Lent calls us to listen more deeply. Listen for the beckoning of the divine. Listen to the cries of the earth and her inhabitants, and how we are listening to the cries in Ukraine today. And listen deeply to our own souls. Now, I listen all the time. I listen to podcasts, I listen to NPR, I listen to books, I listen to friends and family on the phone. In fact, I wear hearing aids that are Bluetooth enabled, and I can listen to things, and you're thinking I'm listening to you, but I'm actually listening to something else. I try not to do that too much, though. But that deeper listening, the kind that Lent calls us to, well, that needs silence. That needs time and a receptive heart. That's a little more challenging. Maybe that's why Jesus went into the wilderness, for the time and silence, for that deeper listening. But the longer he's in the wilderness, the harder it gets. He encounters an adversary. Now, I'm not going to speculate on whether this is an internal or external adversary. Whatever it is, it plays on his arising weakness and doubts. Jesus is famished, so he's offered bread. He begins to realize his calling to a special purpose, so he's enticed to rule the world. Jesus senses that some kind of divine power flows through him, so he's given the chance to spectacularly display that power. Who could say no? Who could resist? How did he resist the easy way out and all these enticements and still stay true to his calling? I wonder if that had to do with his baptism, specifically the blessing at his baptism. You are my son, the beloved. With you, I am well pleased. Did that blessing give him the strength to survive? Was it that blessing that gave him the fortitude to resist? Was it the echo of that blessing that made him determined to follow his true calling and not the shiny paths offered by the tempter? Jesus listened to the echo of his blessing for guidance. Now, we listen to many calls and claims throughout our lives. But I'd like to suggest this morning that we who are in the third age, as it is sometimes called, rarely listen for the specific calling during this season of life. In our congregations, we seldomly contemplate, what is this time of life for? As a result, we can feel we no longer have a true purpose. Subtly, imperceptibly, as we slow down, we may think that our value slows down as well. When we can no longer contribute our diminishing energy to good causes, we may begin to feel that our time and space in the world isn't worth much. But our importance to God does not depend on our usefulness. Can you please say that? My importance to God does not depend on my usefulness. All kinds of different calls reach us during our later years. The call to volunteer for good causes, the call to do Wordle and anything else that keeps our brain agile, the call to exercise, to stay fit, the call to socialize, to maintain our connections, the call to see the world before we can't anymore. All these things are healthy, life-giving intentions. In fact, they enhance our attitude towards aging. And as an aside, did you know that according to some Yale studies, people with positive attitudes toward aging are 30% less likely to develop dementia? That's astounding to me. But perhaps what we don't listen to for enough is, what is our spiritual calling? What is the divine calling us to as we age? One answer may be that we are called to become blessers. The biblical theologian Klaus Westermann says that in the Bible, the act of blessing, baruch, means imparting vital power to another person. The one who blesses gives the other person something of his or her own soul. The call to become a blesser in these retired years changed how I see myself now. It has changed how I relate to the world around me. And it has even changed how I view my own aging. This is something that doesn't depend on energy or vitality, but it does require intention and practice. When I remember my vocation as a blesser, I find that my relationship to myself and the world is transformed. My heart softens. My focus shifts from doing to being, and rather ask myself, what can I do? I ask, how will I be? I effortlessly become more grateful and appreciate smaller, everyday things. I feel more vital and alive. And I sense that I am deeply connected to all that is. And I'm filled with greater strength and sense of purpose. And in a world that tries to make me invisible, I feel like I belong. My 87-year-old friend Esther employs a blessing practice that gives light to her corner of the world. In very, very early morning hours, she walks nearby to downtown Walnut Creek. Esther goes into the deserted downtown where only window washers who wash the windows at Tiffany's and the street sweepers and maintenance people are out at that time. And she greets them all with, "May there be blessings for you in the day." When Esther receives a grateful smile in return, she thanks them for the job they're doing, telling them, "You make a difference." In this simple, mindful act, she blesses the world. In the workshops and retreats I offer called the Blessing Path, I guide participants to recall the most significant blesser in their life. Very often, perhaps most often, the blesser is a grandparent, aunt or uncle, or another elder from whom they were able to experience unconditional love. We as parents think we give unconditional love, but our children, since we're trying to socialize them, don't always experience it as unconditional. But elders can give that unconditional love. And as people remember in these workshops what it felt like to be cherished, they are moved to the point of tears. When my youngest son, Elliot, was 4, he spontaneously took a deep breath, sighed, and shrugged his shoulders and said, "Grammy makes my heart feel better." It's time to listen to the seasons of our life. Time to listen for our call to this particular time. And perhaps together as communities to ponder the question, what is the call of an aging congregation? Elders are the ones who can best make hearts feel better, not by advice giving, but through blessing. The heart you heal just might be your own. Amen.